Surfing is the art of riding waves. No surfer tries to create waves. If the waves aren't there, you just don't surf that day. Over the last 40 years at Saddleback Church, we've never tried to build a wave. It's God's business. But we have tried to recognize the waves that God was sending our way, and we've learned to catch them, even if it means surfing in the middle of a storm. It was 1979. I was 25 years old, living in Texas, 5 months away from seminary graduation, and my wife was 9 months pregnant with our first child. One afternoon, I discovered that the Saddleback Valley was the fastest growing area in the fastest growing county in the United States during the decade of the 1970s. This fact grabbed me by the throat and made my heart start racing, because I knew that wherever new communities were being started at such a fast pace, there was also going to be a need for new churches. As I sat there in that library, all of a sudden I just started to shake. And I clearly felt the Holy Spirit saying, you're going to spend the rest of your life in that location. Tears welled up in my eyes, honestly, because I had heard from God. After a week, I flew Kay out to see the area for the very first time. We climbed up on the highest hill we could find, and looking over the Saddleback Valley filled with thousands of homes. And I said, honey, I think God is calling us to move to Southern California and start a church with no members and no building and no financial support. And I've never been a senior pastor. What do you think? And she said,
it scares me to death. But I believe in God. And I believe in you. So let's go for it.
I've often thought, how would history be different if my wife had said no? From that moment on, our destination was a settled issue. God had shown me where he was going to make some waves, and I was going to have the ride of a lifetime. In the final days of 1979, Kay and I packed up what little we had, and we moved from Texas to Southern California. We had a new decade before us, a new ministry, a 4-month-old baby, and God's promise to bless us. I pulled off the freeway and stopped at the very first real estate office I could find. I walked in and I introduced myself to the only person in that real estate office, a realtor named Don Dale.
Hey, Don Dale.
I said, my name is Rick Warren. I'm 25 years old. I'm here to start a new church. I have no members, I have no building, I have no money, but I need a place to live. And I asked Don, I said, do you attend church anywhere?
No, I don't.
I said, well, great, you're gonna be my first member. And that's exactly what happened. Don became the first member of Saddleback Church. 2 weeks later, we held our first Bible study. 7 people showed up. I had decided that we would make no effort at all to attract Christians from other churches. Since I felt called to reach unbelievers, I determined to begin with unbelievers rather than with a core of committed Christians. In order to understand the mindset of unchurched Southern Californians, I spent the first 12 weeks just going door to door, talking to people individually.
How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I would introduce myself by saying, hi, my name's Rick Warren, and I'm taking an opinion poll in our community. I'm not here to sell you anything or sign you up for anything or to convert you to anything. I'd like to ask you 5 questions, and there are no right or wrong answers. It'll only take about 2 minutes.
Sure, just a second. Caleb, yeah, play nice with your brother.
You got a minute.
From that survey, we discovered 4 common complaints about churches.
Church is boring, especially the sermons. The messages don't relate to my life, and let's not forget, people are judgmental.
I just feel like church members can be a little unfriendly sometimes.
Well, we worry about the quality of the church's childcare.
Well, I feel like the church is more interested in my money than me.
When I go, I just want to feel welcome and not embarrassed.
I've learned that most people can't hear until first they've been heard. People don't care how much we know until they know how much we care.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I see, I understand.
I'm so sorry that you had that experience.
Tell me more. Bill, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That little group grew to about 15 people. We hand-addressed and hand-stamped 15,000 letters, and we mailed them out 10 days before Easter, right before the first service. I wrote and rewrote that letter probably a dozen times because I kept thinking, what would I say if I had only one opportunity to speak to all of the unchurched people in Southern Orange County? What would I say to them? It said, at last, a new church for those who've given up on traditional church services. It went on to explain the kind of church that we were starting, and it invited them to our first service at Easter. 2 weeks before our first service at Easter, I said, guys, next Sunday, we're gonna meet at the high school and we're gonna practice our service. It'll be a trial run service. We're gonna practice singing the songs, and I'm gonna preach like there's a crowd of 150 people. We'll work out all the bugs so we can assure that when the visitors show up next week, at least will appear that we know what we're doing. Now, the most important part of my preparation for that first service was preparing the message that would share God's vision for Saddleback Church. I'll never forget it. I said, what is the dream of Saddleback Church? It is the dream of a place where the hurting, the depressed, the frustrated, and the confused can find love and acceptance, help and hope, forgiveness, guidance, and encouragement. It is the dream of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with hundreds of thousands of residents. It is the dream of welcoming 20,000 members into the fellowship of our church family, loving and learning, laughing and living in harmony together. It is the dream of developing people to spiritual maturity through Bible studies and small groups and seminars, retreats, and even a Bible school for our members. It's the dream of equipping every believer for a significant ministry by helping them discover their gifts and their talents that God gave them. It is the dream of sending out hundreds of career missionaries and church workers all around the world and empowering every member of our church for a personal life mission in the world.
It's good. Just maybe emphasize each thing just a little bit more.
Emphasize.
Yeah, just a little bit more energy, but it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the dream of sending our members by the thousands on short-term mission projects to every continent. And it is the dream of starting at least one new daughter church every year of our existence. It is the dream of having at least 50 acres of land on which will be built a regional church for South Orange County with beautiful yet simple facilities. All of this will be designed to minister to the total person, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and socially, and set in a peaceful, inspiring garden landscape. Friends, I stand before you today and state in confident assurance that these dreams will become reality. Why? Because they are inspired by God. Saddleback Church held its first public service the following Sunday, Easter, April 6th, 1980. 205 people showed up to attend. We had caught a wave. I will never forget the feeling of watching all those people walking up the sidewalk with a mixture of excitement, fear, and awe. I said to Kay,
This is going to work.
and Kay said with tears in her eyes,
Yes. It's gonna work.
a mother holding her newborn baby for the first time could not have more joy because the birth of a church was taking place. I want to say again, only God makes the church grow. It's not our responsibility to make waves, but to recognize how God is working in the world and to join him in the endeavor. I don't know how the next chapters of Saddleback's story will be written, but I am confident of this, that he who began a good work in us will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. One thing I know for sure, God finishes whatever he starts. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He will continue to fulfill his purposes at Saddleback and in every other church that lives for his purposes. I am praying that God will use you to fulfill his purposes in your generation. I am so looking forward to praying for the next wave of God to move through Saddleback. I've seen it over and over and over, and I want to see it again. I'm praying for your role in that wave, the waves of revival, the waves of growth, the waves of compassion, the waves of spiritual receptivity, the waves of ministering to the world, the hopeless, the least, the last, and the lost. Because there is no greater use of your life.
This Jesus who carried our shame, this Jesus who rose from the grave, the same Jesus we worship today, came to us in grace and in truth, still with us, still on the move, the same Jesus. He's making us new.